Woo.
Yeah, except
Well,
it's not 3 of us. It's 2 of us. I gotta fix that. I meant to fix that before the show. There we go. Nope, you're not Blake. Nope, you're not Heidi. Dude, here's the thing. Like, I need to find. There we go. That's the right one. All right. What I need to do is I need to find some way to mark this stuff because there's like no easy way.
No,
I mean, I guess if I had renamed it instead of HFC YouTube thumbnails parentheses 8 into parentheses .png, and then the other, like this one's parentheses 8 in parentheses PNG, this one's parentheses 9 .png, this one's 12 .png, 10, 11. You get the idea. Anyway,
maybe your naming convention. You know, maybe if you knew something called like logistics or something like that, that would enable you to draw in on that packaging and labeling philosophy.
You would think. You would think. Well, hi. We are live now across the entire internet. Everywhere you go, you will see us. Our wonderful, beautiful faces.
We get around. I think it's fair. I've got around this week. I've been like sort of giving all sorts of talks in all sorts of places, all from the comfort of here. So
yeah, I saw that. You've been You've been all over the world from your
from the cabin at the end of the game.
From there, yeah.
So no, it was a bit of a weird one. And did I do this as my one more thing? I need to check my notes.
Add to your one more thing.
Well, no, I think it might have been my one more thing. I've left my email open. That's like
whoa.
Oh, it's been what it's been a day. It's been that was an email telling me that we're live on Twitch.
Oh, there you go.
Please, so useful email.
It has also been a day for me, so I'm curious to hear about your day.
So let me just check. Where's my one more thing? Yeah, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it in my in the end of the show. So it literally started off with. So I'm still moaning a lot about this trapped nerve, and in my neck. Which if I keep going too long without moving, without being properly on top of my painkillers, which is like over a month now, then it hurts. And the more it hurts more in the afternoon and evening than it does in the morning, which is good, which is fine for me because I can take the drugs. But it's the everybody else working around me that realizes that Barry gets a little bit tetchy, and I had a really, really busy day, and then got into this one meeting with a supplier who wasn't doing what they necessarily should be doing, and I don't lose my temper at work. I really don't. I can get annoyed, frustrated, and all that sort of stuff, but I don't get to the whole "will you just listen to me? You're not doing it right" type thing, because I kind of feel it doesn't help. Well, that's where we went today, and I was getting sufficiently annoyed that I was slightly short, shall we say? So it's been one of them, and it's just been really busy. What about your day? What's vexed you?
Well, the thing that I am currently, I guess, working with is, when you have all these thoughts about how you want to collect data and how you want to structure data collection and how you want to gather feedback from people. And then you go into a dry run. And everything that you wanted to do just doesn't work, or it breaks in some way that was unforeseen. That's why you do dry runs, to be fair. But
if for everything to go, that's not cool.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't everything, I should say. Like, it went off pretty smoothly, all things considered. It's just that there's way more rework than I had thought that there was going to be because of just a couple things that tweaked it out of balance. That's okay. That's part of the job. But that's
frustrating still. So I mean, I don't care what anybody says. When you come to do the dry runs, when you can either be doing a demo, or you can be doing an engagement, or just testing a questionnaire, you have genuinely put largely your heart and soul into get to that point. So you're doing a dry run, but you don't actually want anything to go wrong, because you kind of hope that it's perfect. because that's just the type of people we are. You sort of put it in, and you think you've put all the effort in and done all that, and then people start pointing out, well, what about this? What about this? Have you thought about doing this? No, but now you've said it, that's really annoying because you're right, darn it.
You're right. Yes.
Yes. Which is, as you quite rightly say, why we have dry runs.
That is exactly why we have dry runs, and that's okay. Let's see here. Couple housekeeping notes. One, if you are watching live, and if you're a Patreon member or a member of our lab, there is a dial-in link on the show notes that you can dial in live and let us know your thoughts on the Chief Trust Officer. That's what we're talking about tonight. Trust. Yes, trust in automation, big topic. Trust in a lot of things is really important.
I'm still trying to work out how is it CTRO or is it a CTRO?
CTRO. Or, I like CTRO. I've been doing CTRO.
Yeah, it's a bit like with the CIHF because I say CIHF. So many people. Well, I said some people. A few people now they kind of call it CIF.
CIF.
Yeah, and I'm like, I kind of get that, but I hate it. I properly hate it.
But here's the thing: with Chartered Institute, you can make it like. Hang on. Let's have fun with this really quick because you can go C lowercase h I Institute of Human. Oh, wait, it's ergonomics, right?
Yeah, ergonomics and human factors. Chinoiru. Yeah.
But I mean, like you can play around with these however you like. You can go Chinoe.
Or Chinoef.
Oh wait, F. Yeah,
there's a song like that, isn't there?
Wait, it's
human
factor. Ergonomics and human factor. Yeah, so Chinoefa. I mean, you can have fun with it, right?
They're feeling more offensive than CIF at the moment.
Okay, that's all right. I mean, you could do the same thing with this show, right? Call it Hufaka.
I was going to say, you surely we're going to get to sort of what Heidi's initial problem was regarding naming conventions, because it just lends itself to that.
Oh man. So yes, Chief Trust Officer is the story tonight. If you would like to follow along with that story, I guess you can always search Gizmodo, or not. Sorry, Gizmodo. It's MIT Tech Review this week. Yes. You can always follow them. Search for introducing the Chief Trust Officer, or if you're lazier or perhaps more tech savvy. Let's say tech savvy. That's not laziness. If you are more tech savvy, you can always just scan this QR code here on your screen.
That's
what you can do.
You're into your QR codes, aren't you?
Yeah, I like them. I think it's a nice way for people to just sit there and go, oh,
yep.
Because I mean, you never know where people are watching. People could be watching on their phones. You take a screenshot of it, and your phone will recognize that there's a QR code there. You snag it.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, and on most devices.
Yeah.
And then there's also, like if you're watching on TV or your computer, there's those things as well. I think it's just it's in the show notes if you're on the computer, and it's if you're on the TV, you can scan it with your phone.
I wonder if anybody's actually watching this on the TV itself, because obviously, like, watch on the computer monitor, like say, watch on your phone. I wonder if anybody goes to the effort of pushing it out to the TV, or maybe what uses YouTube on their TV to watch us. I think that would be interesting to know.
I use YouTube on TV to watch your show.
Do you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not all the time, but
it was once twice. I think I think the last thing I properly streamed to the TV in that respect was, well, there was two things. One is when SpaceX did they did the initial Dragon launch and the docking with the ISS. So I streamed
Yeah.
that because that was cool. And the last, well, I think the last two Chad Institute awards nights, because we do it all online now rather than face to face. So I've done that, but yeah, I've never really. Oh, and when I was trying to learn the saxophone, I think I streamed some of the saxophone lessons to it. I was not very
And
good
because
on the saxophone.
so yes, I am really into my QR codes tonight, but this is also because I forgot to do it last week that I'm going to do this. Okay. No, it's not. Barry, stop. Is you texting me saying, "Hey, buddy, I have 4 minutes to showtime, and I'm hanging out here in the lobby."
Well, yes. Normally, because I'd have looked on and seen that you're.
Yeah, I'm usually on 15.
And
today I was getting.
And then it was like sort of now. So I normally rock up here just after 9 o'clock, so I can catch up on all the other stuff. I can slowly go through the notes, read the story if I haven't done that already, and all that, and then drop in. So for our pre-show, about 1:45, 10 to something like that, and I dropped in at about 10 to. This evening I sort of skived a bit, and I was doing a little bit of Minecraft. Then we're like, it's 1:45, jumped in, and then I'm just hanging there in the lobby, just sort of going, I've signed in everything, but nobody's here. Very lonely, so I sort of kicked around the room a bit and waited. And I was like, done. Maybe I should nudge you in case you're waiting for me to come in and sit there going, where's he at?
Where is this guy? Is time change again? What is...
To be honest, I did go and check the time just in case that had happened. But no, we good.
Just because I didn't do this last week, and I'm going to do it this week in the pre-show.
Right, okay, yeah.
Okay, I didn't do this last week, but here we go. Here's the story for tonight. Chief Trust Officer. We'll get to that. Stories for next week. You ready for these?
Go on then.
First one here. Blind trust in enhancement technologies encourages risk-taking even if the tech is a sham.
Interesting. It's got lots of links to stuff that we talked about in the past.
And stuff that we're talking about tonight, too. I think it's a good... And that's the one that's currently in the lead. Don't want to, obviously, influence this too much. The next one here. Even weak traffic noise has a negative impact on work performance.
I think we might potentially struggle to make that work.
I think other people are thinking the same because it's currently the least popular. And then we have invisible interfaces. The UI of the future doesn't have a screen.
Yeah, I'm down with that. That could be quite good fun. Because again, that fits with a lot of stuff that we've done in the past around all sorts of stuff. Brain HCIs, all that sort of jazz. So if I was going to go for something, actually, because I'm into different types of user interface and stuff. I'd probably go for that one if I was to encourage anybody else to do the same.
We better go vote because there's now the count. Let's see here. What is the count? Oh, did you vote? I think you may have voted. Did you vote?
Oh, somebody's just done that. Yeah, I just voted.
Okay, good. All right,
I'm Patreon. I can vote.
Anyone can vote. It's open to anyone. Anyone. If you want to click on this link here, open up the QR code that's over there by Barry's face. It is open to anyone. Anyone can choose the news. Have your voice be heard. Actually, that's the commercial for tonight. So I'm not going to go too much into it. But yeah, let us know what you think of the stories. And there's also, interestingly enough, there's a write-in, which is about misinformation and state or trait-based susceptibility of people to it, as well as how some players may be using that knowledge nefariously. I think that's a good topic. If we can find a good article around it, that'd be a good one too. Maybe I'll keep an eye out for that stuff as we are looking through the stories for the week. I'll look out for misinformation, disinformation. But yeah, that's a great one.
that's a topic I would have to be very careful with.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's always that. Like, if for whatever, like, there are, I hate saying this, but there are some certain topics that we just can't talk about on the show for one reason or another. Be it we could get in trouble, like I gotta. There's been so many defense-related stories that I've just not picked up and thrown in the queue because I'm like, I don't even want to come close to that. Yeah. So it's there are some things that we can't necessarily talk about, and if that's one of them, it depends on the topic, right? If I find it,
yeah.
Maybe you can tell me offline what things I need to avoid there.
I'll tell you some point. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it might not be a problem, but we'll find out soon.
Right.
But anyway.
But that's what the people want, Barry. That is what the people want.
That's true. Yeah. And it doesn't, I mean, with a lot of, I mean, yeah, you're right. With the defense stuff, sometimes you have to act a bit clever. It's not necessarily we can't talk about defense-based stuff. It's just sometimes we wouldn't want to give ourselves the opportunity of dropping ourselves in the brown sticky stuff. Because that's irritating when you do that, and people tend to get annoyed.
We don't want to ruffle any feathers here.
No, or prejudice any future employment.
No, of course not.
Because that would be irritating. Oh dear. But no, that would be quite interesting to see how that vote evolves. That's weird.
What's weird?
Somebody's moved their vote.
Oh, I see that. Yeah, they moved it to the traffic noise. I guess traffic noise wasn't getting enough love. Or maybe they just want to see us struggle because we mentioned it.
Yeah. Or maybe we need to do a reverse psychology idea. So we really want to talk about weak traffic noise because I think that would be so interesting to talk about for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Okay, no, Barry, be careful with that because what's going to happen is somebody else is going to vote for it. They're like, oh, yeah, no, they clearly want that.
I'm sure it'd be fun.
But the weak traffic noise, you think that would be fun?
No.
Okay.
That's got not got fun anywhere written anywhere near.
That's got not fun written all over it.
Pretty much. We could talk. I mean, unless we could crowbar in another UI story around it, like how we use UI to measure work performance, therefore making weak traffic noise interesting.
Okay, yeah, no, that could be an interesting take on it. How do we measure work performance? How do they measure work performance in this study? And what does that mean for? I mean, to me, that one would be like, what does that mean for the metropolis mindset? Mm-hmm. You have these city centers, and if there's traffic noise outside, what does that do to all these? Does that mean that we then sprawl out?
It does. I mean, but it would also be, and I know you and Blake talked about this eons ago about with the growth of suburbia and beyond, and the impact that has on poverty and how that is, the social connectivity there. Then that means that the traffic noise would be where you can't escape from.
Oh my God, Barry, we got to stop this. Somebody else just voted.
But we're doing it now, so if we just get it out of the way now, then we don't need to do a show on it because we've actually just nailed it already.
Okay, all right. No, don't vote for that. Don't vote for that episode. I mean,
you can do it if you want. I mean,
you can. We
can talk about it, but there's more interesting ones up there. No, stop doing it. Stop voting on it. I'm going to fall out with you all.
Don't make Barry mad. You wouldn't like Barry when he's mad.
It's been that sort of day. It could happen. It's already happened. Sort of happened once already.
Touchy. Oh, well, look at that. Look at that. They just changed their vote. Okay.
Well done. See, clearly the threat of me getting all upset was just too much. People don't want to see that, which is good.
Okay, we've really scared them off because that person who changed their vote from the interfaces, the invisible interface, has changed it back to I don't know who's changing what. The numbers just keep changing on our end. Yeah, if you do want to choose the news for next week, here it is.
We've got to have somewhere being able to show the live poll status on the screen. That would be amusing. But I wonder whether you can get an output from Patreon to make that happen.
It would be cool. The thing that I'm thinking of is, like, have it up in like a side corner. Like, hang on. Let's try something really.
Or if you could feed, if you could do it so you could feed.
If we could feed it, that would be sweet.
That would be very. So as soon as anybody votes, it comes across as like it could almost be like some sort of election show, as we do an entire pre-show over the and feed it like one of them primetime election coverage shows.
we could do something like
I'd like to do one of them. I think that would be quite good fun. I've suggested for next year, for the when we come to elect the new president-elect for the CIHF, that we actually hold a hustings, a proper online hustings, so where members can pose their questions and things like that. I think that'd be quite good fun. And then we could do some sort. If we did that, then we could do some sort of polling and get some, like, say, UK and worldwide graphics. So nicely done. Oh. It's because we put out the second episode of the Pulse last week as well, which was very exciting. And then I don't know whether I told you this, because I don't know whether we talked about it when Kate was on, but Ben, the CEO, suggested, do we want to do a live one? So a bit like what we do here. I was like, that could be. I didn't expect you to get out the block so quickly with that one, because I was going to suggest it maybe a month or so down the line, to see if you'd be up for it. But he's like, oh, we could do a live one. We could do it. Okay, you're calling my bluff. I like it. So we might have a go at a live pulse as opposed to a dead pulse, pre-recorded pulse.
A live pulse. Oh, see, here's the thing. I can't.
What are you trying to do?
What am I not trying to do?
Well, we haven't actually checked the notes yet. So while
I'll
do that. Oh, we get to talk. We get to talk about Safe and Effective. That's exciting.
Yes, that is out.
Yeah, finally.
Have you listened to it?
Not yet. No, I'm saving that for my Friday afternoon, because normally I listen to them when I'm driving, which is about 20 minutes. But because this is the first one, I want to. We've got the hot tub set up outside, and so if all goes well, so I've got a lot of work to do tomorrow. So I'm starting off, ironically, super early, considering we're now in our 4-day week, and I should be working Fridays. So I'm starting off super early. I've got a strict deadline of 5 o'clock to get this proposal in, and a bunch of other stuff to do. And so, but as soon as that is in and done, it's really, really nice weather. So I'm going to be hitting the hot tub and playing that through the outdoor speakers and listening to it I'm using as a heat treatment for my shoulder is my excuse, but really I'm just going to laze out.
No, of course.
But then I can only do that for so long because I'm going to an awards dinner tomorrow night as well. Very exciting as well.
There you go.
So,
yeah, I've listened to it about 5 times in different format. I think the thing with this one is interesting because Heidi and I went back and forth on, like, what information do we want, like, how do we polish this? Because the interesting piece that is different about Safe and Effective, that's different from this show, Barry, you and I ramble. We ramble. Sometimes we don't care what we say, even if it's not factual. I mean, we correct ourselves if it isn't. But,
or correct on legal.
If it's illegal, we don't care. We'll just say it. It's out there. But with Safe and Effective, there's an interesting twist to this where we're talking about government, FDA regulations.
Mm.
And so I should say Heidi has to be very careful with the information that she talks about on the show. And so there's like careful crafting of the transcript after it's done. So that way there's not like, we misrepresented it there. It's a cool process that doesn't exist on this show. And I'm glad we're doing it with that show. It's just a different beast.
Yeah.
And truthfully, that's part of the reason why it's taken so long to launch, at least with the first one, as we become more practiced and start to get some of this like process down, it'll shore up in no time. But like, yeah, it's cool.
And presumably as well, as you get, it's a bit like us, isn't it? And what I do with 1202 is the more you get used to working that flow, so your pre-show work will get better. The research will be more on point, and you'll know what sort of things trip you up and stuff like that. So yeah, it's I mean the Pulse is interesting for me because I'm debating whether it actually needs to be an audio podcast at all, and whether we just do YouTube, because I think that's where the bigger benefit is, and therefore if it is, I want to spend more time learning or using it as an opportunity to do more video production.
Yeah. But I say go for video because, like, how many subs does Seif have on YouTube?
Well, I'm jumping on top of their channel already, so they've already. I mean, I don't think it's got a huge amount of following, but it's got some. And then in terms of podcast, it'll be. I mean, we need a good couple of months worth of data to be able to work out whether that's actually worth it or not. Because it's got to grow. We'll push it in the next but one Ergonomist magazine. We'll sort of see how that rolls out. But it's interesting. It's amazing how the first podcast you roll out, so 1202, everything took me ages just to do little steps, and obviously learning from the likes of yourself about how we can do different things. Setting up the second one has been such a doddle. I've been less concerned about the technical aspects, like what platform we're going to use, because it's all there. And so I've been able to focus on, right, what is it we're trying to achieve? Whereas, so 1202 is kind of my playground in terms of I want to try new different things, and I'll get people on to do it. I mean, weirdly at the moment, I've got 2 shows waiting to go out. I mean, that's unheard of. Normally, I'm right, what are we going to talk about this week? Quick, grab someone, get it recorded, get it turned around in like sort of say 5-6 hours. Whereas I've got like a month's worth of stuff. Yeah, it's exciting. But I'm still waiting for a go on one of them from the company, which is quite ironic because normally I don't give people any option. Once they've signed up, then it's good. It's all mine. But I like to play nice.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm I have a note here. This is probably too like much of a. I'm hesitant to say this. I have a note here. That says it's my to-do list, and on my to-do list I say, "Welcome Discord members." Under it, I have like a sub bullet saying, "I've been quiet. Mention burnout." And like for me, going on vacation kind of reset something in me where, not that I don't enjoy this, it's just that I guess didn't realize how much responsibility and work that I had been putting into this passion project. And then when I took that vacation, I'm like, wow, I was doing a lot. And so I'm not in any rush to ramp up that again. Like this time last year, I had just gone on vacation and came back to, we were just about to do our Pride Month with all the Human Factors minutes and everything. And that was a great effort. And I just, even to our lab members, I feel a little apologetic because I've been largely absent from I used to be chatting all the time in lab chat and I don't know, there's something just there's no, I don't want to say there's no drive. But I mean, like, there's some really important things that I need to do, and I've just been lagging on them. And I think the vacation has put me so far behind that curve that it's difficult to get that momentum back.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, we've been talking a lot about burnout and stuff. I have certainly from a personal perspective, and you can't work. I mean, because you're quite right. You have been working quite solidly, and this is like before the main job, and all that sort of stuff. But it's this is all like you say, this is all hobby stuff. We don't get paid for this, so but it does take up an awful lot of time, and it can take up almost as much time as you want to give it, because short, all that sort of jazz. Anyway, it's that sort of time, though, isn't it?
It is time. So we're going to start the live show, I think, right? Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
Every time I say live show, I think dirty thoughts.
We do need some sort of red light on here just to give it effect.
Like, it's something better than red light. I got an intro.
Okay.
And a big ol' it depends button. So there you go. All right, we'll be right back.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Yes, hello. It is episode 284. We're recording this episode live on May 25th, 2023. It's Human Factors Cast. I am your host, Nick Roome, joined today by Mr. Barry Kirby.
Hello and good evening.
Hey, that person who used to come into the show notes to write like little funny names for us, come back. We like those. Right. Welcome to the show. Tonight we got a great lineup. We'll be discussing the role of this new thing, the Chief Trust Officer. Later, we'll be answering some questions from our community, such as, how can I determine if UX and UI design is the right career path for me? And talks about validating ideas from leadership, and do companies hire UX researchers for research work that isn't specifically related to UX? All that and more. But first, we got some programming notes and a community update here. As I mentioned last week on the show, Safe and Effective followed our show. It launched. It's out there. You can go and listen to it.
Woo-hoo.
It's out anywhere you are listening to Human Factors Cast right now. You can find Safe and Effective. And if you want to, go to the website, safeeffectivepodcast.com. That's safeeffectivepodcast.com. It's funny because it's like it's SAFEEFFEC, right? So if you look at all of them, there's this FEEFFEC. Anyway, go type out safeeffectivepodcast.com and you'll see what I'm talking about there. The first episode's out. They do Heidi does a regulatory roundup with Janet Kraser, and it's a great talk, and there's even some familiar voices in there. Let's say that. And that's enough of a tease. Barry, I'm dying to know, though, what's going on over at 1202.
So at 1202, we've got the interview with the Chief Executive Officer, Ben Peachy. I keep on saying he's new. He's been in post now for about 6-7 months, and he's the guy who is driving all of my whims, my ideas, and is the person who has to tell me, no, Barry, we can't do that. So he gives us an insight into what it's like doing for his role, why he wanted to do the job, and the background into his previous roles and his previous drivers, and which kind of influences the decisions that he makes today and why he's doing what he's doing. It's really good, really interesting, and you get to learn a lot about really the man behind the CEO, as it were. It's great.
So are you saying that he's the brains and you're the brawn? You make it happen?
Unfortunately, he's the brains and the brawn. I think I'm just like largely a figurehead.
Okay.
Who says what says what Ben tells me to say.
Well, there's that. All right. Well, we know why you're here. You're here for the news, so let's get into it. That's right. This is the part of the show all about human factors news. Mr. Barry, what is the news story this week?
So this week we are introducing the Chief Trust Officer. According to Deloitte Research, the concept of trust is becoming increasingly important for organizations in the digital age, where misinformation, cyber attacks, and rapid digital transformation are commonplace. Trustworthy companies outperform their competitors by up to 4 times, and employees who trust their employers are more motivated at work. Despite these benefits, only 19% of organizations have dedicated C-suite leader focused on building trust. This gap has led to the emergence of the role of Chief Trust Officer, or CTRO, or CITRO, however you want to pronounce that, who can help organizations build trust across the organization and partner ecosystems. However, the need for a CITRO has not always been apparent, and their emergence is a response to the growing importance of trust building in the face of media polarization, geopolitical uncertainty, and the scrutiny of data. A CITRO or CTRO can help organizations earn and maintain trust and be an effective differentiator, competitive differentiator. Overall, the role of trust in employee engagement, customer loyalty, and financial performance is becoming increasingly important, and practitioners in human factors need to contribute to this emerging field to ensure organizations learn to build trustworthy products and systems that can support the growth of the business. So, Nick, the killer question here is, are we going to get a CITRO in the next Human Factors Cast C-suite meeting?
Yeah, of course we have a C-suite meeting here at Human Factors Cast. There's executives and corporate figureheads and all that stuff. Yeah, no, I mean, look, here's the thing: is that I don't know how to answer your question. Are we establishing trust with our listeners? I hope so. I hope you keep coming back every week because you trust our opinion or you trust what we bring to the table. This story is quite interesting to me because when I first read it, I was like, okay, let me actually read my notes verbatim here in the show notes. At first, I was like rolling eyes emoji, and then I was like thinking emoji. But I truly, this did have me going, okay, we need another C-suite role here. Pay them way too much money to do the things that they do. But this could be a huge thing for user-facing teams. So UX. Ultimately, this could be a great thing for the end user because this report is advocating for the creation of these roles to help better get consumers to trust a product or brand. And to me, this got me thinking about several different ways to tackle this one. But the most interesting piece that I thought of is right now you have tech CEOs who are out to protect their company. And you can imagine that anyone in a C-suite would probably do that. But what if they started throwing out these CTROs, or let's just call them cilantros? Just put a couple extra words in there. I'll have ChatGPT come up with something in just a second for that. But I think if you put these guys out in front of like a government official testimony type thing, where you have they can talk about it from that end user perspective in a way that is not necessarily a business decision. Their role in this thing might be business related in the sense that trust drives business, but ultimately they could talk about it from what is happening at an end user perspective. And to me, this would be someone who would live even above like a director of UX or something like that. And you could have UX and product and marketing and sales and everybody reporting to this CTRO or under this CTRO or whatever you want to call it. And it's just an interesting addition that this is something that we're starting to think about. And it's really exciting, actually, when you think about it from this perspective that, okay, trust is really important from a consumer standpoint. And why is that? It's because trust is a seminal human factors tenant. Barry, I'm okay. I'm reading your first word there. What are your thoughts on this?
So I think this has the potential to be interesting and to be potentially do some good stuff. But given where we're at the moment, could it just be perceived as all a bit woke? And could it be perceived as just being a reaction to where we're at today, and the fact that it has the opportunity to be seen as just a fluffy cloud of a job? Now, I think this is quite interesting when certainly in the United States, you've got some political things going on that seems to be very woke or anti woke and driven in both them ways. And so this is where this sort of role could get shrunk. Here in the UK, we have senior roles that are things like diversity officers and things like that, and chiefs of diversity. That some people see, yes, that's a great idea and a great role, but gets lost in the woke or anti-woke reaction. So I sort of caveat that with, I don't think we should worry, or I would like us not to worry too much about that sort of reaction if it's the right thing to do. But we also know that public perception is quite key in C-suite roles. So that out of the way, I think this is. I was very similar to you in when I read your reaction to sort of go, is this what? Are we going to talk for this? Is this just like, and then the more you read it, and actually it's the first time in a long time I've gone and read the article and then gone and read the report behind it, because I was like, okay, where can this go? And as long as they're given the opportunity to do the job and supported to do it properly, actually it could be quite cool, because it's not just a people role. I think we've got a huge opportunity here, as you quite rightly say, the UX, the side of it, but actually it is not just about people within the company, but it's company to company. It's external perceptions, company to the public, and all that sort of stuff. And it can encompass a lot of things that we probably just find uncomfortable. But is it also a technology role? So we're talking about trusting technology. Can we trust the information that is going in and out of our systems? Can we trust the information within? And so you could actually say that there is a technology role in this, to make sure that the technology we're using within a company is trusted. The stuff that we're giving out can be trusted. So there could be a good technology piece. It's obviously there's an element of psychology there. So once you start bringing in the technology and the psychology, well, that's a human factors role, isn't it? Because that's what we do. And then we also go on and say that human factors is the thing that glues projects together. Well, maybe this Citro HFE type role might be the thing that actually gels a lot of companies together at the C-suite level. And it's possibly the first role I think I've seen that actually would suit an HF professional to go direct into the C-suite, which is interesting. So yeah, I kind of gone from a position of really just another wokey thing to do that to actually this could be quite cool.
Yeah. So really quick, can we just call it cilantro and be Chief Intelligence Analysis Trust Officer?
You didn't listen to a word I said, did you? You just been playing around with ChatGPT to come up with a new term.
No, I listened to you. You said woke, and then you said what you had the same reaction I did, so I kind of just shorthanded it. But yeah, I think you're right. The fact that a human factors practitioner could step into this role is absolute. I agree with that. Yes, 100%. Because if you think about this in terms of a strategic leadership position within organizations, the piece that's interesting to me is that we as human factors practitioners would be the advocate for the user. There would be, I fear that this role would transition from something along the lines of chief trust officer to, from trying to build and maintain trust among the users to something along the lines of, well, how do we generate the most trust, but maybe not have their best interest at heart? So like there's an interest, but how do we use their data for nefarious purposes? Like there could be a ton of twists to this role that could make this bad.
Absolutely, yeah.
I guess is what I'm saying. And this could be something great for, like, I think genuinely a lot of people in UX and human factors have the user's best interest at heart when they come forward with a suggestion. They say users want to do X because of these motivations, right? And I think when you introduce sort of business decisions into those things, sometimes those business decisions get in the way of the user goals. Well, we're not going to let them do that because that would mean less money for us. So does that mean that the chief trust officer would then, that role would be compromised in a similar way? Because at the C-suite, your goal is to maintain the company in a profitable manner. And I think the interesting thing to this is that is some of the stats behind this, right? The research is showing that these companies that are deemed trustworthy by consumers outperform their competitors, and the metric by which is the factor by which they are outperforming their competitors is quite astounding. 4 times. Those that are trustworthy 4 times, or I should say up to 4 times, outperform their competitors up to 4 times. That's a huge number. And so if you think about if companies were smart about this, they would hire somebody who truly does have the user's best interest at heart, and it would be a conversation. But the other thing, sorry, my thoughts are all over the place because I just thought of something else. You have what you don't have today is an advocate for the user at the C-suite level, which is just insane to me to think that you have a boardroom meeting with the C-suite executives, and in there someone says, no, we can't do that because the user would not trust our product if we made that business decision. And that is something insane that doesn't exist today. There might be folks that have that sort of thought or have introduced things like from a technology perspective. You can think like CTO, tech officer, that bubbles stuff up from UX or whatever and say, well, some research says blah blah blah, but they aren't an advocate. They are just like repeating research that's happened. So I just think that would be really cool to have that user advocate at the table in those C-suite meetings. I don't know, that's just one thought that came to mind. I've been babbling. Go.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think there is, and this could go to the actual true point of understanding the definition of what this CTRO, the Citro, is going to do, because trust appears in many places within a company, and I would challenge to a certain extent that I think the C-suite already does what they do in the best interests of the customer. Now, I'm using the word customer that is different from client, from user, because the customer is generally the person who's paying the money. The user generally doesn't pay the cash unless they're buying the product themselves. So then, therefore, they end up being the customer.
They can be the same and they can be different. Yeah, you're
exactly right. So if you're buying something large, so say government is buying something, the user is definitely not the customer. The customer is the person who hands. And in fact, I've been in situations where you've got more than one customer, which gets terribly frustrating. So actually, who is where is the trust being built at that point? It's going to be with the current C-suite, is, as you possibly allude to, is going to be trying to build trust with the customer, with the person who's handing over the cash. In the theory, that they're not going to hand over the cash unless they trust that it's either the job has either been done or is going to be done. And so that's where that trust needs to lie. So would a CTRO go in, and how would they change that dynamic, if anything? So with the user and the customer. But I guess on a wider level as well, is there's also the internal trust issue, the trust between C-suite and employees, all up and down the business. There's a lot of talk now around just culture and the application of just culture. In fact, I've done at least 2, if not 3 interviews on that at the moment.
Couple episodes, yeah.
And we've had, at the end of EHF 2023, we had basically a panel discussion on just culture. Just culture, and therefore, would just culture be something that actually the Citro would be in charge of, because it's in there, that is in their best interest, that is the sort of thing that they'll be pushing. Again, you've got the idea about trust in process, you've got trust in technologies, you've got things like that. I think that the breadth of things that the Citro could be involved in, have influence in, could be huge. And if it wasn't huge, if they couldn't get into all the different places where trust exists and is required, then they would then be useless without being able to do it. So there is an element of that. So if you have that, I mean, they sort of, I guess that there's talk about, if you don't have trust already, if you don't have trust in an organization, you couldn't just appoint Citro and say, right, we've got a Citro now, and therefore everybody trusts us. What would they have at their disposal? So if we have the C-suite for Human Factors Cast, we walk into the room and say, right, we need to build trust. What could the Citro actually do to do that? What sort of, I don't know, what things do you think that they would have to have at their disposal in terms of tools to be able to do this sort of stuff?
Yeah, no, this is interesting, and this really gets at sort of the C-suite level decision making that happens versus the like the UX level where they're kind of in the weeds with the user. I think the first thing that comes to my mind, the biggest tool that the Citro would have over what exists today, is what I described previously. That seat at the table.
Yep.
That is the biggest cudgel by which they wield that could make the biggest impact. And here's the other thing. That Citro has to have as much say as any other C-suite that's sitting on that bench, because what happens today is you'll have like in corporate, you'll have like folks lower down the totem pole that will advocate and say no, the user can't blah blah blah, whatever the thing is. And yeah, that gets processed, that message gets changed and altered and pushed up the line and then relayed. But if that chief trust officer is at the table and can relay those things directly to the others that are making the decisions, that is the biggest tool that they have. And so when I think about tools from an executive standpoint, I don't think of necessarily like, oh, they're sitting there and they're using, SurveyMonkey to do these things. I think of the tools internally and externally that they have. So internal market research, UX research. They have any point of interaction with a user or a customer. I think both of those factor into trust. And like we said, those can be the same, those can be different. But I think their job is to synthesize everything from across the different perspectives. So you have sales, you have marketing, you have like onboarding, you depending on the product, right? You have all these different types of things. You have UX, you have product managers who might go out and actually talk with folks too. And so anytime you have a lot of different moving parts and pieces, there's going to be various opinions on how to do certain things. And that chief trust officer's role will be to take the tools that he has, i.e. these various factions or segments of the business, take that information, process it, and then relay that at the top level. And then those decisions then get propagated down in such a way that you're not building a product that is going to be bad for the user in some way, shape, or form. And I think this also does another huge thing that maybe a whole lot of people aren't paying attention to, or maybe it's mentioned. I did read the report, but I didn't see any mention of sort of the reducing risk piece of this, where if you introduce a chief trust officer and have that user advocate at that high level, you're then reducing risk that you're going to build the wrong thing. That's what UX has traditionally done, right? Is to reduce risk in terms of building a product. But that's sometimes more focused around the decisions about how to implement something, not necessarily the decisions on whether something's right or not. Of course, there's the discovery phases, but they aren't ultimately the ones that are making that call. In a lot of situations, you have product or even the CEO that is driving directives down from the top. But having somebody like the Cilantro, you have them at the top help making these decisions. I just think it's so powerful, and it's an underrated thing that reducing that risk could have for a company, and then that ultimately just builds more trust with the end user, the customer, whoever you're trying to target in that with that decision. That I think just, I don't think this is going to solve all of our problems. Let me be clear. Facebook hires a CTRO for Meta, and like they're not going to use our data differently. I don't think they're still going to sell it, but there might be some changes on our end that is like goodwill towards us that says, hey, we're going to de-anonymize your data, and we're going to actually take out these few things that make it really clear who you are to them. That would build trust. Like, I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I part of me says I think that you're not going to get to a C-suite role. I mean, let's face it. I don't know. Would it be that this Citro would get into the C-suite? You don't get C-suite role without being a business animal of some description. That you're gonna, the first job of business is business, and I don't care what role you do. The first job of business is always business. If the business is not there, nobody's got a job. No, you haven't got a product. It's completely pointless. So you become this Citro. Now, if the right sort of person is selected, the right sort of person is trained. So, like we propose somebody with a human factors background, that would be great. Not the only fruit, but generally a good thing out there. But if they didn't, and they just appointed almost anybody, the last IT officer or something like that, that could really strongly influence and flavor what the Citro actually does, because again, we're sort of assuming that that they will have a usability or a user focus. I'm not exactly convinced that they will. I think they, ideally, from our perspective, that would happen. But would they? Is there potential there for just saying, right, okay, well, we're going to have we're going to deliver a load of these initiatives within the company. We're going to have, Popcorn Friday. Because we also know that fairly simple things please employees, and because generally, if you're hard worked, I remember being part of a company that suddenly decided to offer free coffee out the coffee machine. You got 3 free coffees a day out of the vending machine, and suddenly morale from the business went up massively. And I was like, literally all they've done is given you 3 cups of coffee that were fairly rubbish anyway. And now you think they're the best thing since sliced bread. I mean, imagine that on a trust perspective. Is that going to actually work? I'm sort of trying to play that the counter, the devil's advocate in this, because
Yeah.
if the role, I think that there is potential for this role to be done badly. In the same way as we've seen some companies sort of go, we've got a senior director of carbon or offsetting or climate or whatever, so that you turn around and say, what are you doing about climate change? We've got a vice president, we've got a C-suite member in charge of that. And still, I mean, there's reports coming through today about certain companies that are actually worse off now than when they did. So healthy dose of skepticism, I think. However, taking it at face value, it could still be right. I mean, I guess then if they do bring in these right initiatives, the right sort of communications as well, because communication is absolutely key. But I think you alluded to it earlier, the potential for this to provide value for the company, because I think some of the research in the report sort of shows, if you buy from a brand and you trust that brand a lot, you get quality product, but actually the brand itself, you think, that's I trust that brand. 88% of people who buy stuff from them are going to go back and do it again and again. Which is, there's some products you buy, you don't actually know what brand it is, you know where you got it from, does the job great, but you don't really care. But actually, if you get a brand that you think actually they're good, that it's good, solid product, I trust what they're doing, and I would trust then to go and buy something else from them that maybe is a bit more edgy or something like that, then that's going to work. Similarly, if you are in work and we talked about just culture within the organization, if you trust your employer to be making the right decisions and make it work, if you trust your employees, 79% of employees will feel more motivated at work, or will actually feel motivated at work. I mean, those two stats in themselves should encourage more trustworthy organizations, or the focus and development of trust within the organizations, you would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, the thing for me is that you're talking about it, and I alluded to it earlier. What I don't want to see this type of role reduced to, I shouldn't say reduced to, because it would be a huge boon for the company, is this change equals this percentage increase in trust. What is the least amount of things that we can get away with that would increase the trust? How do we combine these in a way that still gets us the most profit and the most trust? It's maximizing that profit to trust ratio.
Mm-hmm.
And that sucks. That sucks. Like, if you think about it from that perspective, that just sucks. And hopefully it's not that. Hopefully, I think good citros, good cilantros will be the ones that don't leave a bad taste in your mouth. Will be because cilantro, the joke didn't land.
This is all night, isn't it?
It is. The thing here is that, like, when you have when you have a citro that is advocating for things like effective communication between the company and its customers or its users, or even to the product side, like the reliability of a product, like, hey, this thing is breaking all the time, we need to fix these types of things so that way the users trust our product to work a little bit more. And then the other thing is, like, this would have, if done correctly, oversight into, like, even PR decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You think about, like, messaging and how things like integrity are important to people, and the honesty, fairness, all that stuff. If a company comes out and says and creates a message about something that's happened, that is also that is also touching trust. And of course, we've already mentioned sort of the empathy about a user customer perspective. And then the other things that at least come to my mind about what impacts trust with a company are things like how transparent they are with, I don't know, things like their data practices, or I don't know, their actions and decisions about product and things like that. Like, why are they making these business decisions? There are other things that I can think of too, like the competency of a company, how consistent their products are over time. If you get a phone from a company one time and it's great, and then you get a phone from them the next generation and it sucks, like, that's not going to contribute to your trust within them. And then there's obviously, like, other things like your past experiences. That's not something so much that they can alter, but they can start forming new experiences that then build that trust over time. Like, I had a bad experience with an Apple a long time ago. I don't like using Macs. I have one for work, but, like, I don't like using it. And so, like, but do I trust the company? No, I don't trust any tech company, but that's just me. So, like, I don't know. I think the biggest thing, though, like, for me as a consumer, is, like, the benevolence of it. When you know that company has your best interest in mind, right? Like, they are ultimately there for you. That makes me feel good. There's a couple of, like, to be clear, there's a couple of, like, products that I use that ultimately I truly feel like I am the center of their universe when it comes to making decisions. And it's the to be absolutely clear, it's like the companies with, like, smaller user bases, and it's a lot of companies like the one that we're using right now for streaming this, and the one that we use for our website, and those types of things where truly the user base is very small. But anytime I've had an interaction with the CEO of these companies, like, that's how small they are.
Mm-hmm.
it's been truly to understand what my needs are, and not necessarily, like, obviously they want my money, but it's truly they're trying to build a product for me, and that's what ultimately keeps me subscribing to these things. So I just hope that it doesn't equate into, well, let's take a look at the spreadsheet. If we were to be X more transparent about these initiatives, that would increase, trust and in by like 30%.
But
And that would be a marginal business cost. Go ahead.
but isn't that what they've got to do? And I guess this goes into how do you measure trust? Because you could argue that they bring in the citra, the cilantro, and say the as you
Gotcha saying it.
they bring it in, and it's just a fancy PR stunt. We've seen, as I alluded to earlier, there's other things that have come in that people go, oh, it's just what it is. But also the Citra has got a job on that C-suite to convince the rest of the business that it's worth doing. And the only way you can do that, because the only language the business truly understands, whether it's big or small, is bottom line. If you're not breaking even, if you're not making a profit, whether you're a private limited company, whether you're publicly, you've got shares out in the market, whatever it is, you need to be making the money, the profit, to make it worthwhile. So you're not going to invest in stuff if it loses you money. So the Citro has got to turn around and say, they've got to make a business case. They've got to turn around and say that investing in this campaign, investing in my team, which is actually something else that we should probably briefly touch upon. What would the Citro team look like? But they've got to turn around to the rest of the C-suite and say, a bit like what we have to do in the human factors level, none of you get what I'm talking about. None of you get this human factors stuff. None of you really get this trust, this Citro stuff. But if you do this, here's some numbers, here's some figures, here's an argument that says it's going to be good for the bottom line. It's going to add value to the business in some way. Because otherwise you just wouldn't do it. Now, I think we are moving into a state of civilization where we're at, where people do value trust in an organization. People do value how people treat their employees. People do value, what does the diversity look like within a business, which might affect particularly more middle class people, maybe slightly upper class people, who've got the ability to choose where to spend their money, might choose to spend their money in more ethically oriented businesses, etc., etc. But I think that's it. Again, going back to the main point is, how do we actually then measure trust? Do we have to keep on doing all these questionnaires that we get every time we buy a product? Do you trust this company? Is it a question in the questionnaire? Is it something that we have to do sort of mystery shopper type things with? Is there a measure of trust out there? I don't think there is. I think it is it's a subjective measure based on a feeling that might not stand up to actual scrutiny or fact. But it's something we're going to have to get a grip of to make this work.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are plenty of ways to measure trust. You have that, like, within the trust and automation field, or there's a couple I can think of off the top of my head. I think consumer trust is different, and I know that there are plenty of ways to measure that. It would be interesting. I'm actually skimming the article right now to see if there's any mention of measure or how they gathered that. And I'm not seeing anything. Maybe you can do some quick searches too, but like
there wasn't any. That's why I bought the point.
Yeah, I think. I mean, they're using the DLI trust framework, which is measuring it presumably against 5 core tenets, which is kind of looking at leading by example, delivering with excellence, performing with distinction, securing the foundation, amplifying core values. But really, it's kind of this yin and yang between competence and intent.
Yeah,
and I think that's kind of how they're using it.
But again, that isn't a measure. So the Deloitte Trust Framework was brought in as a way of of explaining. It's a bit like what we do in human factors when you turn around and say, like, what does human factors look like? We've got the cool diagrams. So they sort of turn around, and it's still the sub elements of it are still all very subjective. So it's not an objective measured framework in order to do it, because they measure things like, conduct. Do you have good conduct? Yes. No. Measures scale 1 to 10. Do you have authentic and resilient leadership? Well, that's subjective, because it's your if you did a 360 review on that, you get very different views, etc., etc.
But I think that's the point, is that subjectivity is the measurement, right?
But if you're coming in with that, and because if you measure the level of leadership within our human factors cast C-suite, I measure it, and so the lab members measure it. Everybody would come out with a different number. Everyone would come out with a different opinion based on their perspective, and that's the issue here as well. Is the different people have the different measures, so it is a subjective measure. There's the true science behind it doesn't work. It is a me framework. You couldn't come out with a 7, whatever 7 means, and then compare that against another company on a like by like comparison.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I disagree. I think there are probably maybe not with this one, but I think there are some measures out there that we could certainly look at it. And I think this is really just offering ultimately just a different way to look at who's at the table at that C-suite. So I just looked at the time, and we've been talking about this for some time. So let's do some final thoughts here, Barry. What are your final thoughts on the Chief Trust Officer?
I think it's a role with a lot of potential, as long as it doesn't get lost in wokery. And I think if it's given the right bounds and ideas, I think it'll be interesting to see how that role develops.
Yeah, for me, my final thoughts: don't mess this up. Don't F this up. Like this has the potential to truly be a transformative role. And that there's a reason why I chose the word "could" for the title of this episode. A Chief Trust Officer could be a user-centered superpower. But that's only if we treat that role from the user perspective. And who knows, maybe they'll develop some empathy along the way, and it'll be the friends that we made along the way. So huge thank you to our patrons and all of you for selecting our topic this week, and thank you to our friends over at MIT Tech Review for our news story. If you want to follow along, we do post the links to the original articles and our weekly roundups in our blog. You can also join us on Discord for more discussion on these stories and more. If you want to vote on these, of course, you can always visit our Patreon. That poll is open to everybody. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back to see what's going on in the human factors community right after this. Are you tired of boring lectures and textbooks on human factors and UX? Well, grab your headphones and get ready for a wild ride with the Human Factors Minute podcast. Each minute is like a mini crash course packed with valuable insights and information on various organizations, conferences, usability methods, theories, models, certifications, tools, and much more. We'll take you on a journey through the fascinating world of human factors, from the ancient history to the latest trends and developments. Listen in as we explore the field and discover new ways to enhance the user experience. From the Think Aloud protocol to the critical incident technique, focus groups, iterative design, we'll make sure that you're the smartest person in the room. Tune in on the 10th, the 20th, and the last day of every month for a new and interesting tidbit related to human factors. Don't miss out on the Human Factors Minute podcast, your ultimate source for all things human factors.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our monthly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and access to the full library of Human Factors Minute, a weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, It depends.
Yes, huge thank you as always to our patrons. We especially want to thank our Human Factors Cast All Access patrons like Michelle Tripp and Harris Gainey. Just today, welcome Harris to the Human Factors Cast Patreon family. We're happy to have you. So, as you all know, as I mentioned it before the break, we do have you all choose the news. So it's time once again for us to embarrass ourselves, and I will do it this week. So. Greetings, folks. It's your magnificent podcast host here, trying to sound suave and sophisticated to make this announcement of utmost importance. Available now on our Patreon page. You can decide what the heck we talk about. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Why should you care? Well, let me tell you. By choosing the news, you can help determine what we chat about on future episodes of this fabulous Human Factors Cast show. This is your time to shine, folks. Your voice matters. Feel like a politician. And don't worry, we're not going to hold this poll hostage or anything. Anyone can participate. Yes, even you, suspicious listener in the back over there, you can finally let your voice be heard. So what are you waiting for? Head over to our Patreon page, cast your vote on the exciting topics that you want us to talk about. And hey, if you don't like any of the choices, feel free to submit your own ideas. We're down for whatever. Well, maybe not for whatever, but you know what I mean. Let's make it happen, people. Let's choose the news. Let's rock this Human Factors Cast together. What do you think, Barry? Did I nail it?
That was interesting. What I was just reading through, and I suddenly realised that because it suggested putting various sounds in the way, we could have done most of the sounds.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Shoot.
If I'd been more switched on, next week we'll think about sounds and cues and stuff. Because you wanted like sounds of crickets chirping, and we could have done this. But
that would have been great.
But I missed it, so I'm sorry about that.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the ball. All right. Well, let's get into this next part of the show.
It came from.
Ah, yes. It's that fabled part of the program it came from. This is where we search all over the internet to bring you topics that you're all talking about. That's you. That's the community. If you find any of these answers useful, give us a like wherever you're watching or listening to help other people find this content or find these answers because they're useful to you. They might be useful to somebody else. All right, this first one up here tonight is by Maul the Great 8 at on the UX research subreddit. They write, "How do I know UX is for me?" They write, "Am I a good fit for UX as an inquisitive, empathetic, creative, and introverted individual with a love for design, psychology, and computers? I'm not sure if this field is right for me. Furthermore, tend to prefer working alone and striving for perfection. Should I pursue UX internships to see if it's appropriate for me? Can I be a good UXer, even if I only have 2 projects on my resume? Is it necessary for me to have a portfolio for internships?" Barry, let's take this. Let's take this one by one here. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this person would be a good fit for UX?
I think in terms of the characteristics they suggest, then yes, I think they certainly seem to have half of the right ingredients. But that they've only sort of highlighted half of the job because it's not just about the role itself for UX design, but actually where you're doing it. So you could chuck yourself in for that job, but you've also got to think about the team fit, the culture, behavior, and that all needs to fit because they say that they are sort of a bit introverted, inquisitive, empathetic. You've got to make sure that the team you join will allow you to utilize your personal characteristics to the best of their ability. So yeah, I just crack on. But the only person who can tell you whether it's actually any good for you is you. And the only way you're going to find out is by going to do it. You might hate it. Not drama. Find another job.
Yeah. For me, it's yes, welcome to the UX stuff. We got cookies in the back. I mean, like you're right. They do have I think they have everything of the making here. And I don't know if necessarily like researcher is the job, but maybe analyst, data analyst. Because if you come and you look at data that's something that you can still be empathetic and inquisitive and creative about the way in which you display data or show those things, right? And so if you're working on, you could be a researcher and just kind of focus on the data, and various larger companies will have this segmented out where you can actually, somebody goes out and talks to them and maybe they come back and research it, but then you have other data analysts looking at things. There's a fit for you somewhere. I don't know.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into this next one. Pansy000 on the UX research subreddit. They write, impact equals validating every single idea that leadership has. They write, as somebody working in a UX research role, I am interested in understanding the nature of my job. I've noticed that there's some senior UXers seem to focus on validating every idea that comes from leadership rather than uncovering insights from quality research. Should I be doing the same to please my stakeholders, or is there any merit in approaching research in a more open and unbiased way? How can I balance the need to please my stakeholders with the desire to produce quality research? Barry, I thought this was a really interesting question. Curious on your thoughts here.
Yeah, it's interesting because we sort of get into we've kind of done it a bit tonight. You get into this almost combative role that your managers, the managers above you, are not interested in what you've got to say and are not interested in users and things. And that's not. I don't think that's the case. I think they've just got different drivers. Because seniors, I mean, they're stakeholders too. They're stakeholders within your project. If you're not producing what you need to produce, you're not producing the right information, the product will fail and the company will fail. Now, it might not be that they're not saying what you want to hear, and you're right that senior leadership will come out with drives or ideas that they want to happen, but that's why they're senior. That's why they've gone up that tree. Is they're directing overall strategy for the company. You're delivering a small part of, or maybe even a large part of that strategy, and seeing how it fits. I mean, fundamentally, I'll use this with caution, but I'm going to say they're not idiots. Most of them are not idiots. You get exceptions, but they've probably got insights and logic that you're just not seeing, and that's what there is. Part of your job is, if you think what your research is showing needs to be communicated better or needs to be taken notice of, because you're seeing something that will affect the overall strategy, that will change the direction of the company in some way, small or large. Actually, the onus is on you to make sure that you can. It's no good just having good quality research. You've got to be able to communicate it as well. And sometimes part of the job is just knowing which battle to fight. Some battles you really want to die in a ditch for, and others actually you there is not enough time in the world and not enough life in you to fight every battle. So pick what you do. So I guess slightly devil's advocate that yeah, seniors need a bit of love too.
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately a job is a job. And so if you are instructed to just validate, then how exactly what you were saying, Barry, pick your battles. How much do you want to be antagonistic towards a coworker about a disagreement, and is it worth your job potentially if an HR complaint gets filed because you're battling it out? I think ultimately your role here is to advocate for the user, and I think that's true no matter which research that you're doing. And it could absolutely be the sense, and it will kind of depend on your company too, of like how you approach these problems. It sounds like they're definitely more post hoc analysis of decisions that have already been made, versus sort of that discovery phase of trying to figure out what it is that the users need. And there's, you could do both. The thing with this is that there seems to be sort of a bias towards validation. And I think you can either validate or invalidate these assumptions. And I think both are valuable. If you come to the table and say, here you go, this is what we wanted to test, and it actually came back that the users don't want this thing. Well, there you go. My job is done.
Mhm.
I've told you what you wanted to hear. We tested your hypothesis. It didn't come back, and we need to change course. Okay. Well, if you had looped me in on the discovery phase a little bit earlier, we could have figured this out before we had made the decision to do this. But that's kind of another battle that you can pick. I know that some companies kind of use UX as a patch rather than a preventative. They use it as the aspirin rather than the the stretching or whatever. I don't know. I can't think of a good analogy there. Okay, let's get into this last one here. This one's by Austin Baldy on the UX research subreddit. Our company's hiring UX researchers to do research work that isn't UX related. All these questions related to Barry, and they're all kind of along the same lines that we talked about with the story, which is why I thought they were good. This person writes, as someone who works in UX research, have you ever been asked by your company to do research that isn't related to UX work? Is this a normal thing? How can you tell if you're being taken advantage of or asked to do something outside your expertise? Would appreciate any advice or insights from those who have found themselves in a similar situation. Barry.
So yeah, there's a good chance you will get. I mean, the researcher skill, or particularly UX. So a researcher skill isn't just focused around UX. Yes, you're taken on to do UX, and you expect to do like 100% UX work. But sometimes them skills are transferable. They're relevant elsewhere. So if you're in a position where the management comes and says, actually, could you come and do this bit of research for us? Then in many ways that's a compliment. You've got skills that can crack on and do. Is it something that's normal? Is it something that I've been asked to do? Yes and yes. And the big thing I think I would pull out of this is be selfish about it. What are you going to learn from this? Are you applying your skills in another new environment that is actually going to give you a new bunch of insight and experience that then suddenly finds its way onto your CV and makes you imminently more employable? Or you can go and say, hold on a second, I've been doing my UX role and I've been doing this. You need to pay me more money. Or is it just something that is just a bit of a waste of time? If they're wasting your time, or you feel your time is being wasted, then and you cannot resolve that, you can go and have a chat with them and say, actually, I don't think I'm doing the right thing. And they're, oh, terribly sorry. We thought you might like to do, have the conversation. If you're not having the conversation, you're in the wrong job, and bail. But I love taking on opportunities like that because you do genuinely making yourself more employable on the whole. Nick, what about you? What do you think?
A job is a job. Your role is to act as an advocate for the user. But if they put you on research, you can, like you said, Barry, you can still use some of those skills. The funny thing is, in the show notes here, I have the same exact answer for this one that I did for the last one. But I think there's, with doing research on a topic, I tend to think of it as secondary research, right? So if you're working on a product and they have you doing research on, I don't know, something like code, does that fit your skill set? It may or may not, but the thing for me is, like, how does it ultimately relate to the user? And if I am looking at other things going on in the industry, maybe doing like competitive analysis, I still consider that like UX work. If it's like market research, I still consider that UX work because I can ask questions that get at that. The more difficult thing comes when it's truly like completely absent of user feedback, or when it's secondary research that doesn't touch your product in any way. But then again, I wouldn't understand why you would be doing secondary research on something that doesn't touch your product at all. And so for me, it's all part of the job. It's not necessarily like they're putting me on a research task for something unrelated. Unless they're like, the thing would be like, okay, Nick, you know nothing about Figma. I want you to go figure out how to use the third-party plugin. I know nothing about coding either, so I'm just going to go do this thing and figure it out. And I'm not touching the users, but I get Figma skills. So there's that. So that would be kind of the way I think about it. Yeah. All right. And it's time for the show where we just do one more thing. Barry, what is your one more thing this week?
So this week I had a rather strange but really quite cool experience where I got to present my first external keynote as president of the CIHF, which was to the Iranian Occupational Health and Safety Conference, which I thought was really neat because I woke up in the morning, went and did that conference, then I had morning coffee and I went to do my day job because it was obviously a remote conference, but it was really good fun. It was an interesting thing that I've learned about keynotes when you give a keynote, because normally if you go and give a presentation at a conference or something, like, you're either given one on your paper or you've got a topic or something like that, whereas this was just, would I could do a keynote speech. Great. What sort of topic would you like me to do it on? Whatever you think we'd like to hear. Okay, so I did. I talked for a significant period of time about the challenges facing us in the human factors industry, with rising number of requirements and not enough people to do the job, and therefore how that's going to put us in a poor situation further down the line. So it was good fun. So I hope I can do more of that sort of thing. I thought it was a lot better, a lot more interesting than I thought it was going to be. Nick, what about you? What was your one more thing?
Was that recorded? Can I have that?
I'd
love to hear that talk.
It might have been. If not, I could. I've still got my slides, so I could probably rejig something.
All right.
And you,
well, from yeah, would love that. So for me, I have been in a weird spot since coming back from vacation. I mentioned in the pre-show that I have a note that says to mention burnout when I greet Discord again. There's and another interesting thing that's going on too is that I kind of had a depressive bout as I came back from my vacation, and this is there's this is kind of tough to talk about, but like there's I find joy in doing some things, right? Like playing video games after my son has gone to bed. And there have been 2 games that have come out recently. One, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and that one I beat before I went on vacation. Was going to come back and was like, yes, I'm ready to play this. I am going to 100% it. I just haven't had the drive. I've found more joy in watching sort of like these short YouTube clips that just take seconds, and I haven't played it in like a week. And then, of course, there's the other big game here, Tears of the Kingdom. And I was actually having a chat with one of our lab mates, Alex, about this, where this game is like 3 times bigger than its previous game. It's the new Zelda game. And it's like there's so much to do.
Mm-hmm.
And for somebody who's neurodivergent and needs like checkboxes to click off and direction to be able to drive how I enjoy a game, there's like the game is truly free reign and is very open, and you can go anywhere and do anything at any time, and it's all up to you. And in a lot of ways, a lot of people are very positive on this game. This game has got positive reviews all around. I am feeling so overwhelmed and just I want to get back to it, and I've got past like the first area, and I'm like, there's so much to do, and so I'm like super overwhelmed, and it's just not a good feeling to like want to play or want to do something and just have it kind of fight you back when it doesn't mold with how you're thinking. So if anyone else is experiencing that, I empathize with you, and hopefully it'll get better. So, but not to end on a downer, but that's it for today, everyone. If you like this episode, enjoy some of the discussion about, I don't know, C-suite executives, then, or UX, or maybe all that, I'll encourage you all to go listen to episode 277, where we talk about the point of user stories. Comment wherever you're listening with what you think of the story this week. For more in-depth discussion, you can always join us on our Discord community. Visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter, stay up to date with all the latest human factors news. And of course, you can always vote on our next news story on our Patreon. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple things you can do. One, wherever you're at right now, leave us a 5-star review. We love those. We love hearing from you. 2, and that is free for you to do, by the way. 2, wherever you're at, if you have friends, like, like Barry has a lot of friends, tell your friends about us. That helps us grow a lot. And 3, if you have money and you want to give us some, just $1 gets you in the door with Patreon, and truly all of your support really does go back into the production of this show. We couldn't do it without you, and we truly appreciate all the support. As always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. Mr. Barry Kirby, thank you for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about a little green seasoning?
A little green seasoning.
Cilantro.
Yeah, okay. If you want to come and chat to me all over social media, I'm generally there on easy to find, but on Twitter I'm Baz_K, and I'm there on LinkedIn and them other sort of places. But if you want to hear me talk to interesting people in and around the human factors community, then you want to head over to 1202 the Human Factors Podcast, which is 1202podcast.com.
I guess cilantro is more of an herb. Sorry about that. As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me on Discord and across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning into Human Factors Cast. Until next time,
it depends.
It depends. All right, that was good.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, I mean, it's a roller coaster of a show, isn't it? So, what else do people expect? So we haven't talked about ChatGPT in a while properly. Have you?
Hold on. Before you do that, I just want to mention this because we didn't actually get to this during the show. Dan from LinkedIn, I like that there be user advocate, like a chief trust officer, and should there be also an ecology or climate advocate who looks out for ways where user and environment come together. A territory that comes to mind from a product that can be used in various, let me see here, what does it say? Various ways to make sure that the ways that it is most climate friendly to be easy for the user to understand and enable. So Barry, for your coffee machine example, to make using your own cup easy and to make this clear to the user, another example would be user automobile HVAC without heating or cooling. Clothes dryer to make very long air dry cycles easy to know about, select and use. So those are some examples there. So I want to comment on that one because we didn't actually get to it during the show. I really do like to read those audience comments, and then we can get to your point here in just a second. But what do you think? Do you think there should be an ecology or climate advocate? I know you kind of touched on it during the show a little bit.
No, I think there absolutely should be. I mean, obviously one of my pet passions at the moment is climate economics, and that is absolutely all about that. It's having people at the table who will help make climate decisions and make their business-based decisions. Because actually, in the examples you raised, Dan, being able to use your own cup, being able to most people may or may not realize that you can still use your air conditioning or your air throughput without actually conditioning the air. You can still have that and save. You only really need your air conditioning on when it's way too hot, and you don't need air conditioning on when you're trying to heat the car, for example. So things like that. So yes, I mean, the UI design of things like washing machines, dryers, dishwashers, stuff like that, just baffle me when we actually end up putting Sharpie on bits of the dryer to know which is the best. So make sure you always go to this setting, because out of the 50 settings you've got, you only ever use one of them. So yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that sort of person, but again, it's without real teeth. I mean, we produce the Climate Ergonomics Guide for Business, that sort of give a process around how to make this sort of stuff work. And they would need, and one of the biggest things we brought in was saying that person needs to be empowered. They need to be able to direct work and be able to have C-suite powers to do things and not be overridden. Because without doing that, then it's a hollow gesture. That was a long way of saying yes, I agree.
Yes, I agree.
There we go.
Yeah. Cool. You said ChatGPT.
I did, and what ChatGPT can now do is browse the web.
Plugins.
How cool is that?
I have been having a ton of fun with plugins.
I haven't really tried plugins yet, but like I said, I started playing around the other day whilst I was waiting for an osteopath appointment for my pulley shoulder. I started playing around with the web browsing aspect, and I started asking it questions. I asked it, who hosts Human Factors podcasts? And it went away and searched the web, and it came back with the 1202. The Human Factors podcast is hosted by Barry Kirby. On the other hand, Human Factors Cast is a podcast hosted by Nick Roome, Blake Arnsdorf, and Barry Kirby. And we were the only two that he brought up.
Impressive, huh?
It got better, because then I turned around and said, which is the better one?
Oh, what did it say?
It said, as an AI, I don't have personal opinions, and I'm not able to listen to podcasts or evaluate their quality. The better podcast will depend on both your personal preferences, blah, 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 blah. Both of these, 1202 and Human Factors, seem to have valuable content in the field of human factors. Here are some things you might want to consider when choosing the podcast: host expertise, content, format, length, ratings, and reviews. You could try listening to a few of them and see which one you like. A novel view. So then
force it to pick one?
Well, no. So then I went and said, okay, so which one has the better host expertise? And he come back and said, Barry Kirby, the host of 1202 The Human Factors podcast, is a fellow of the Child Institute, blah, 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 and just rhymed off everything. The Human Factors cast is co-hosted by Nick Roome, Blake Arnsdorf, and again, Barry Kirby. I was like, just throwing in a bit of shade there. Unfortunately, the information about Roome and Arnsdorf's expertise or credentials isn't provided in the sources quoted. Okay, which I thought you were. I thought you.
No, it's definitely out there.
Yeah. To get a better understanding of their qualifications, we could do a more detailed search on their backgrounds. Would you like me to do that? Which I clearly said, yes, I would. So then he come back. So he did a search.
Did it come back and say Nick Roome is like a leading law firm at KMPG?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it came back with. It talked to me about me. Fine, I'm an expert in all aspects of human factors integration and deep understanding of business needs and best outcomes. I was like, I've clearly lied well to somebody. But then Nick Roome is a senior UX researcher at Turvo and also a human factors practitioner. He's a co-host and producer of the Human Factors Cast. And then it's got a whole bunch of stuff about Blake as well, which looks accurate. Considering the expertise, Barry Kirby from the Human Factors podcast has a more extensive and dedicated experience in the field of human factors with over 20 years of experience in human factors consulting. Meanwhile, Nick and Blake from Human Factors Cast both have significant experience in UX research, with Blake having the added experience of applying user-centered design methods to software systems. The best I almost wanted to come back. So the best podcast will depend on what you're looking for. Basically, that is, it depends.
Yeah. You could write it back and say, would you say, quote, it depends? It depends is the catchphrase that they use at the end of every podcast episode. They have merch. Would you like to buy some merch?
And so then I turned around and said, who has better reviews and ratings? Because that was one of the categories it said. I was able to find reviews and ratings for Human Factors podcast. It has a 5 out of 5 based on four reviews on Apple Podcast. That must be just looking at America or UK, or I don't know. Unfortunately, I encountered some difficulties in finding concrete ratings and reviews for Human Factors Cast. Because again, they both have Apple ratings or whatever. I thought, what did you use for that? Yeah, because that came from Apple. So it was just interesting. So this whole idea now of the whole web searching, but it doesn't have to take a long time. You can tell the difference between it using its own data banks and it going out searching the web, analyzing. Right. But what I quite liked seeing was like accessing site, unable to read. You know, it was actually all reading failed, so it actually walked you through it sort of. But it was interesting.
Yeah, I gotta show you plugins because plugins are very cool, and I can show you that in just a moment while I sneak off. Can you just update everybody on the status of this?
Yeah,
like where's it at?
So in terms of choosing the news for next week, I have got it up. That was useful. So we have basically 3 stories in line for next week. So Blind Trust in enhancement technologies encourages risk-taking even if the tech is a sham. And that's currently got some votes. And I'll come back to the numbers in a minute. The second story is even weak traffic noise has a negative impact on work performance. That thankfully doesn't have any votes yet. It's had votes, but then votes have been taken away. The third is invisible interfaces. The UI of the future doesn't even have a screen, which has got some votes. And another, which has got one in there, around mis and disinformation and state trait-based susceptibility of people to it, as well as how some players may be using that knowledge nefariously. So looking at misinformation, disinformation. And that has a vote for it. So at the moment, the Blind Trust in enhancement technologies encouraging risk-taking even if the tech is a sham has 4 votes. The invisible interfaces, the UI of the future doesn't have a screen, has 3 votes. And even weak traffic noise has a negative impact on work performance. At the moment, I'm so pleased to say has no votes at all. Not saying, I mean, if you were in on the pre-show, you'll have seen that Nick and I talk, having said for about a good few minutes then, we don't want any votes for this because I was struggling to think about how we talk about it. We then proceeded to talk for about 10 minutes about all the different things we talk about on this topic. So I can give you this for now for getting sort of no votes on that, just because we can. And I've realized I've got the buttons there that work. But I think each one of these stories will be really interesting to engage with. I mean, even the weak traffic noise, because what we had was it does link quite nicely to an episode that Nick and Blake talked about before I joined this cast, around the way that towns and cities are set up and now sort of sprawling out, and how they link to poverty, and therefore, if you're going to be affected by traffic noise, what might happen? We found out we could talk about it, which was quite cool. But that's still no excuse to vote for it, so don't vote for that one. I'm just saying. Vote for any of the others, just not that one. You decided to join us back.
Yeah, sorry, I had to make sure my plugins were all ready.
Fair enough.
And that we didn't have any.
I hate it when your plugins are not ready.
And just making sure that we're... I got to stop drinking 2 bottles of water during the show. That's what that's what I got to do.
Have you suitably emptied your plug-in now?
This is in the post show. Yes, plug in ready.
That's even worse.
Jeez. All right, here. Let me. Sorry, I truly am trying to get my plugins ready.
Oh right, okay. So you clearly weren't earlier. You lied to us.
Yeah. So I mean I have this stupid bar at the top because I have a Chrome extension. But let me show you plugins, because plugins are actually pretty cool. So here I am, getting older. Oh wait, I don't want DC man. All right, we'll do. Yeah, we'll do that one. That's fine. All right, so you should be able to see this tab here. All right, you can see me live trying to do some acronyms, CTO. But let's do plugins. So check this thing out. So it's under, you can enable it down in settings.
You think you're sharing your screen right now?
Oh, yeah, no, I do think I'm sharing my screen right now. Check this out. All right, here we go.
There we go.
All right, well, let's see here. How do I clean up this UI for us? I'll just do this. All right. Wait, no, I can't do that because that covers my face. Here, how about that? There we go. That's better. So take a look at right up here, plugins, beta. You select that guy, and then check this out. So you can, I've gone through and downloaded a bunch of plugins, download, but there's a plugin store, and this is actually really cool. So, I've just installed a bunch of stuff that I thought would be relevant to the podcast, like video insights. You can interact with the online YouTube videos, like YouTube. I say YouTube videos, online video platforms. Wolfram, which does a bunch of mathematics and stuff to make it right. Ask Your PDF, Zapier, Show Me, which is actually pretty cool. And I'll actually show you that one. So here's all the ones that I've installed. So all these things, you can see them. I'm not going to go over all of them. A couple cool ones, though. Prompt Perfect is really cool because you just throw in perfect before your prompt and it'll go. And then Show Me is cool because it'll create diagrams. So, like, let's say if I wanted to say, I'll do this. I'll do like perfect. Right up a. Oh wait, hold on. I got to enable those plugins first. So I'm going to take off these ones. So Scholar AI and Xpapers look through scholarly articles to make sure that you get references that are not BS.
Cool.
What I'll do is, here, let's try this. I'm going to do an access link too, which allows you to submit a link. And what I'll do is I'll do tonight's story. And we'll also do something like prompt perfect, and we'll also do Show Me. All right, perfect. Write up a proposed org chart for the Human Factors podcast by introducing the Chief Trust Officer role. Use Now here's where I struggle just a little bit because I can't. Oh wait, no, I can still click on these. It's just I can't use access link. Plugin to find out more information about the Chief Trust Officer at this link. Use the access link plugin to find out more information about the human factors podcast at HTTPS. Why is that? At colon HTTPS ://www dot. Here we go. I put one more T in there that's necessary. So I'm having it go out, find information from tonight's story, go out, find information about our podcast, and then use the, what is it, Show Me, I think it is. Use the Show Me plugin. Show Me plugin. To develop an org chart based on this information. So what's really cool is this will go out and you can see it here. It'll say error communicating with plugin service. Please try again. I think what's happening is the perfect one is not working. So I'm just going to take out this, and this is not a perfect prompt, but let's check it out. So come on, what is it? So right now I'm troubleshooting to see which of the plugins is not working. So this is a great demo. But these are all here. Let's try this one more time in a new chat. Plugins. It's still in beta, so you got to give it some leeway there. That one's working. Looks like Prompt Perfect is not working. You can tell by that little shield. I'm going to take that one off. And we'll just do it with those two. We'll try this. What it'll do is I've given it the instructions to use the access link plugin. And so right now it's thinking.
So you have to actually tell it to do that. It doesn't automatically use plugins.
It will use it if it figures it out. But I'm using multiple plugins here, so I want to specify which plugins I'm using for what. So okay, so it's using access link. And you can actually click on this and see what's happening. So it's put in that technology review. You can see what's happening. Okay, there it is. It's pulled in the information from that website. Okay, it's using access link. Let's open that up. Now it's pulling in information from humanfactorscast.media. All right, it's looking for information about the Human Factors Cast podcast, internal server error. Okay, from the information gathered about the CTRO, this role is strategic leader, blah, blah, blah. Let's create an org chart for Human Factors Cast podcast. Let's use the Show Me plugin to develop this org chart. There's Show Me. And now it's developing it right here. Here's the proposed org chart. There's the org chart. You can edit this diagram online if you want to make any changes.
Cool.
In this chart, the Chief Trust Officer reports directly to the CEO, oversees IT department, human resources, customer service, and the podcast department. This structure emphasizes the importance of the trust across all aspects of the organization. The CTRO's role is to ensure that the trust is built and maintained with these departments. So you can imagine how this is actually pretty freaking cool. Look at this diagram.
That is pretty neat. Yeah. Actually, I'm quite interested that they put the podcast department under the CTO as well, or Citra.
Yeah,
which is quite cool. Because you said that in the show. Oh,
yeah. I think this opens up so many doors with this plugin stuff that because look what I had to do. I had to go to 2 different links, albeit it couldn't find anything from here. I don't know what that's all about. But then I had it use a different plugin to show me that the thing. It actually did the thing, and then you can edit that diagram, and I mean, you can do some pretty cool stuff, right? Like, let's try one more example from tonight. We can go. All right, let's do access link again, and we'll use something like what did I have? Like X papers and Penrose analyst. Maybe. Oh, where's that other one that I saw? There's another one that searches for podcast search. Or wait, where's the one that follows YouTube stuff? Video Insights. Can I search it somewhere? World News. Because what I'm trying to do is link together a couple things where perhaps it'll bring back the link to tonight's show. So maybe not. Maybe we'll just try. Okay, so I'm gonna say use access link to view this web page. Use X papers plugin to find relevant scientific articles based on the content of that page. So again, I'm not giving it any information. I could say go out and find me trust, and then use what was the last one? It was it was Video Insights. Use Video Insights to give me information about this video in relation to the web page and the scientific articles. Okay. And then I'll say that. Let me go to YouTube really quick, snag our video. Because it's live too. I'm really curious how it handles live things. Oops, that's the tech review. Uh-oh. That webpage, YouTube. Actually, it's probably up here. View on YouTube. There it is. All right. Let's take this link. And we'll throw that down here. And then we'll see what it comes back with. So using access link, it'll find probably the same information. Using X papers, and it hides all the stuff up here, but it'll, it's finding stuff. It's actually doing obscure all this, because then it just comes back with the output that I'm at. Here are some scientific articles based on the content of the web page you provided. Overview of trust standards, communication networks for future digital world. Towards achieving trust through transparency and ethics. Okay, are you impressed? These are actual scientific articles that you can go out and look at, not just the BS stuff that it would normally spit back out.
It's doing the right sort of stuff. Yeah.
It's doing the right steps. Okay, so here it is. As for the video, it was recorded live, hosted by Nick Roome, Barry Kirby. Video discusses the introduction of the Chief Trust Officer, which is also the topic of the webpage you provided. The video is part of Human Factors Cast series. Please note the video summary is still being processed, so more detailed information may be available later.
That's quite cool.
Is that not cool? That is pretty cool, right?
It is. I mean, certainly, I think some of the research work that can be done now, this is now going to take a bit of a step change, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. That's like plugins are going to be crazy, and right now there's a limit of 3.
Yes,
but you can imagine when you get like 10 of them in there, use this to do this, use that to do this, and you string together these complex things, these multi-step, like use this to find the information here, here, and here. Then synthesize that information and do X with it, and then make a org chart, and then give me this and that and this and that, and just have it all in one output, you know? And I've noticed that like all this, I think, by the way, goes through their token system. And so like their tokens have gone way up in terms of what you put in. I've noticed the outputs are too. So I'm thinking that their threshold is larger too. So you can do bigger outputs, which is interesting. So I'm excited about AI again with this plugin stuff.
My wife just gave me a massive heart attack.
Uh-oh.
So as you know, where I'm at the moment is at the bottom of the garden. And I have it's dark outside. And there's a window just there. And I just looked up from the screen from watching what you were doing, look up just to see somebody peering through the window like this at me. Because Amanda's just got back from her local engineering meeting. And just made me jump quite a lot. So
hilarious.
Yeah.
Amanda, well played.
You have to be there, I think. But
no,
yeah.
I didn't have to be there. I appreciate it. It's awesome. Amanda, well played.
Oh, just perfect timing as well, because we've just gone midnight.
We are just gone midnight for you. It is 4 p.m. for me. So I'm going to go do some post.
Cool.
We'll see you next week to talk about probably blind trust in enhancement technologies, because that's where we're at with that thing.
Yes, no, we will be here next week, but in 2 weeks' time, I'm not going to be here because I'll be hosting my first CIHF trustee meet.
Ooh.
So I know that'll be exciting. So I'll be able to come back the week after and tell you all about it.
Yes, please do. As for all of you, you can choose the news for next week right here at this link. Just give that a little scanaroo. And for us, we will be back next week to talk about one of those stories chosen by you. Until then, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Are you tired of boring lectures and textbooks on human factors and UX? Well, grab your headphones and get ready for a wild ride with the Human Factors Minute podcast. Each minute is like a mini crash course packed with valuable insights and information on various organizations, conferences, usability methods, theories, models, certifications, tools, and much more. We'll take you on a journey through the fascinating world of human factors, from the ancient history to the latest trends and developments. Listen in as we explore the field and discover new ways to enhance the user experience. From the Think Aloud protocol to the critical incident technique, focus groups, iterative design, we'll make sure that you're the smartest person in the room. Tune in on the 10th, the 20th, and the last day of every month for a new and interesting tidbit related to human factors. Don't miss out on the Human Factors Minute podcast, your ultimate source for all things human factors.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our monthly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and access to the full library of Human Factors Minute, a weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember,